I had battled mental health issues for like 10 years plus, like very suicidal and that kind of thing. And I ended up in a hospital in New Orleans, and I came back from that and I was doing so well. I was doing so good, and I was active, back to running and all that kind of stuff. And a couple months after I was home, I got sick physically. It was really frustrating because I went from being sick mentally to being sick physically, and I just felt like I couldn't catch a break.
My name is Jason Lavender. I'm Heidi's husband. We've been married 17 years, and the last few years have been difficult, to say the least. My wife has battled a lot of mental illness and instability and a lot of pain and heartache. Heidi, a few years ago, started having some pain in her feet, and of course we didn't know what that was, what that process looked like, why any of this was happening. You know, you think it's something simple that just needs a quick remedy, and so we went to find that quick remedy, and with each successive visit to the doctor, it was just another layer of complication, unanswered questions, and a referral to a new doctor, and it just never ended.
And so it came on very suddenly, and it took almost a year to be diagnosed because it's so hard to diagnose my disease. It's CIDP, chronic inflammatory demyelinating polyneuropathy. It's basically the same process as MS, but it's to the peripheral nerves instead of the central nervous system. So for 2 years, I slowly, my disease progressed to the point where I could not walk without assistance, whether that was assistance from another person, a cane or a walker. It was to the point where I had to have a home health aide, and she had to help me up and down stairs, and even be there when I showered in case I fell, because I'd be tripping and stuff like that. My balance was really bad, so even if I tried to stand up, I would sometimes falter even with assistance. I didn't have feeling from the tips of my toes to my upper thighs, and then from the tips of my fingers to about my elbows. And I couldn't tell hot from cold. But then I also had this hypersensitivity that wouldn't allow me to wear shoes or socks or have blankets covering my feet without a lot of pain. Oh, and I did have to get hand controls because I couldn't feel pedals anymore for driving. I had to get hand controls for driving because I couldn't feel the pedals anymore. And I had to go through very expensive training, and this is all things that are not covered by health insurance, and so that was kind of frustrating.
She put on a good face and really moved forward the best she could in the midst of just a lot of terrible pain, a lot of terrible days. Just to see her struggle so much, and it just, whatever the doctors would do, it never got better. It was always well, let's try this, let's see if this works. Oftentimes those remedies had severe side effects and so those were quickly cast aside. And but in the midst of that, Heidi, clung to a hope of healing, and that was always our prayer.
So I have known Heidi for a very long time, and for the past few years, her health has been declining, and she has been asking God to heal her, but He hasn't, and we knew that was for some reason, and she had been really discouraged about that, but she had gotten to a place where she kind of accepted that and said, God isn't healing me for some reason. There's some way He's using me, teaching me, and she had sort of gotten to the point where she really accepted that.
So we were at church, and my homework was to pray for somebody to be healed. And then when I got home, God told me that I should pray that Miss Heidi would be healed, that God would heal her, and that she would know that God would heal her.
We were at a prayer and praise service with our church, and I had asked a couple ladies to come over and pray with me. And as we were praying, God made it very clear to me that I was going to be healed.
She had called me over to pray for her, and she had said, and this was just like the clearest, she was so clear about this. She just said, I know God is going to heal me. And she and I had just a week before been down to Kansas City to get hand controls put in her car so she could drive, because she has had no feeling in her feet, so she could not drive. But she said, those hand controls we put in are pointless. God is going to heal me, and I know it 100%.
World Mandate is a conference that is down in Waco, Texas, that we've been going to for about the last 13 years. It's our favorite place to be outside of home. It is a missions and worship conference that engages people to just run to the nations all over the face of the earth. Our journey down to Waco was our normal trip that we take every year.
We go down to Waco the next week, and I have my walker with me. I mean, I even asked Pastor Rob if there was room for my walker, because I was like, I don't know what I'm going to do down there. And so I had my walker with me and my cane, and things were just like normal. I took the elevator up and down at the church where the conference was. Saturday afternoon, we had a prophetic prayer prayed over us, and Papa Joe and Elena were praying over me, and one of the things that Papa Joe said was that my cane would no longer be used for walking but for hiking up mountains. And he said that there were going to be no more restrictions spiritually, physically, and emotionally on my life. And he said there's no more excuses and no more I can'ts, only I cans. Then Elena said that I was gonna skip, and my joy would be contagious. Like 5 hours later, we're in another prayer and praise, and I just really got this word from the Lord that said, have Ty pray for you.
In the middle of it, Heidi turns to me. She was next to me, and it was almost this like a panic look on her face, more like a desperation look on her face is probably a better word. And she says to me, I'll never forget it, she said, you have the ability to heal feet, right? And I'm like, what? I'm like blown away by what, I'm like, wait, say that again. She's like, you have the gift of healing feet, right? Let's pray. And so we started praying, and we're just, calling out to Jesus and praying over her feet. I'm on the ground in front of her, crammed in the little seats, in the chairs, the worship center. Told my wife to go get Jen, have Jen come join us in here.
Here I am. We're in the middle of worship on Saturday night, and I'm sitting next to my wife, and we are just praising Jesus, just going for it. God's moving in the room, and all of a sudden I see a commotion down the aisle from me, and my wife gets up and takes off.
I see Brandy walk over, Tyson's wife, and she's like pointing to me. I'm like, am I in trouble? What's going on? And so she called me over to where Heidi was, and so we began praying for Heidi, and he had already been praying for her, and a few of the other ladies were praying and singing over her, and I just felt like I needed to get down on my knees and touch her feet, and I just felt like this was it. God was going to do it. This was the time.
And so Jen came over, and we all crammed into the little area there, and just shortly there after, I know that, I don't know, I know Brandy was, I don't know if Tanya was, but we start hearing them just singing, declaring praises over us as we're praying.
And so I am trying to concentrate on worshiping and what's going on in the conference. And then I keep looking over, and as I look down the aisle towards the other end of the aisle, I see my wife and Tyson and some of our folks from the church all down on their knees praying over Heidi, and some folks even singing over her. So I'm like, ooh.
So he started praying over my feet, and then he got Jen Dans, and she came over, and then there was people that were laying hands on me as well, and then some people singing over me, and then we got up and went to this. I just felt like God was saying we need to move, and so
I felt a stirring that she needs to get up, she needs to walk, we need to activate this faith. And so we Heidi felt the same thing. So we got up, and I grabbed Tyson, and we went to the classroom down the hallway.
I got up and did not take my cane with me when we went to this other room because I was very confident that God was going to heal me, that he was true to his word. And we went into this other room and they were praying, and then I just said, I feel like God is telling me to skip.
She's like, I think I'm supposed to skip. I'm like, I think you are too. And just remembering in Acts 3 of the jumping and leaping and praising the Lord.
So I got up and I was a little afraid because it'd been years, almost 3 years since I had walked without any pain or assistance. And so I got up and I skipped. I started skipping around the room.
Yeah, so she starts skipping and we're rejoicing, and it's like surreal. It felt like, is this really happening? And it was right there before our eyes. God had done a miracle.
I was skipping up and down the hallway for a while, and then we went and walked up and down the stairs. And like I said, I had taken the elevator probably 30 minutes before that to come up for this service. And so to go from the elevator to skipping and running and jumping, it's just truly amazing.
That day in Texas, Heidi was healed. The answer was healing. And so I get a text message from Heidi and said, all those hand controls we just installed and paid all this money for, it was a waste of money, and I'm healed. A bunch of exclamation points. And so I'm immediately texting back and just, like, explain to me what's going on. And so Heidi tells me that God has healed her and she's skipping and jumping around. And I get a video the next morning, bright and early, of my wife running in the parking lot. Her actual running and movement and everything is just, it didn't happen before. It was not, that wouldn't happen. There's no explanation that God healed her. Subsequently, this last week, just a testimony of Heidi going to the doctor and confirming with her specialist, her brainiac specialist, saying she's healed.
I can walk again. I don't know, to not only have it where I know, but a doctor's confirmation who is one of the top in the U.S. in specializing in this disease says it's not our medicine, it can only be God.
This healing of Heidi's story kind of culminates with the season in our church where we have been really trying to open ourselves to the movement of God and the presence of God and the healing of God and the gifts of God. And I believe that this story is just another anthem for us on how good God is and how real He is and how powerful He is. And this is just a huge testimony to our heart. Once you open yourself up to the Lord and say, I'm all in, Jesus, I'm all in for you, I'm all in for what you have for us as a church and as a person. Once you open those doors and you begin to see God move, you can never go back. There's no going back. When you get a piece of Jesus and you see the tangible, real presence of God working on the face of the earth, changing and restoring and healing people's lives, you can't go back. And for us, just as a church and as a movement that is forming, we just refuse to go back. We don't want to live lives anymore that are just lacking in faith. We want all of Jesus all the time and what He has for us here in Wichita, in this church, and in the nations. And we want to be a part of what God is doing.